along with this one, so some of the members aren't able to be here. We do not have a quorum, but we do not have any minutes to approve, and this is an informational hearing only. So we will proceed in light of that fact. So I want to welcome everyone this morning, and I'm now going to call to order the Budget Review Subcommittee on General Government. And I'd ask that everyone please silence any type of noise-making devices, your phone specifically, or place it on airplane mode so that it does not interfere with our electronics devices that we're using to communicate the meeting to others. If you're attending this meeting remotely and would like to ask questions, please notify us in the chat room that you have a question to ask. And I would also ask that you please leave your devices on mute until you do desire to speak to prevent us from getting any background noises. And with that being said, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Representative Bratcher. Representative Donahue.
Yes, ma'am. Present.
Representative Hart. Representative Miles. Representative Wheatley. Representative Petrie. Representative Reed. Representative Gooch.
Here in my annex office.
Thank you. Representative Miller. Chair Blanton.
Present in the room. All right, then. We will move forward, and the issue that we have before us today is to deal with the budget request from the State Board of Elections related to the e-polling system and to update us on what's going on with that system. So as we begin, I would like to ask any and all the presenters that they state their names, their titles for the record, and then raise your right hands. So, Karen, I'll begin with you.
Thank you, Chairman Blanton. I'm Karen Sellers, Executive Director of the State Board of Elections.
I'm Richard House, the Assistant Director of the State Board of Elections.
Thank you. If y'all raise your right hands, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Karen, I'll turn it over to you, and you may proceed.
Thank you very much. I know that everyone has a lot on their plate today, so we really appreciate the opportunity to come here and want to be respectful of your time, so we'll try to move through our request for funding to bring our e-poll book. System engineer Mark Ott is with us, and system engineer Mark Ott is with us, and Tom Watson, who is also a system architect, both with SBE. Unfortunately, Rachel Pointer, her name is on here. She was not able to be with us today. So, we want to start out by saying we're here again for administration of the e-poll books to be moved to SBE. As background, the paper rosters were what people used to sign in to vote, to be eligible to vote. They would show their eligibility, present their ID information. Paper rosters are a slower way to sign in, and there is no ability to stop double voting. Moving forward, we have the e-poll books coming into play across the state in 2020. At that time, we also had an executive order that we were able to have vote centers in the counties during 2020 election cycle. The e-poll books became valuable because they are faster, a more secure sign-in, and can stop double voting. There are no vote centers without e-poll books. And now HB 574, which went into law in June 29th of 2021, countywide vote centers are approved and require real-time knowledge of a voter checking in. Paper rosters do not allow this. E-poll books are not a luxury now. They are a requirement if a county has vote centers. Otherwise, there will be no vote centers without e-poll books. So moving forward on our reasons for bringing the poll book administration in-house, I'd like to have Tom Watson join us. He's our system architect, very valuable member of our IT team, and would be a big part of any move that we may do toward this end. So I will.
Thank you, Karen. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
sir. We can hear you.
Would you like for me to also swear?
Would you please raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you all for having us here today. We appreciate it. It's quite an honor for us. We take serving the Commonwealth very seriously at State Board of Elections, and we thank you in advance for hearing us out. I will keep this very brief so that there can be questions. I'm sure you'll have some. This is a plan that has been bubbling around for a couple of years with different directors. In IT, we are advisors and implementers. So I just want to make it clear that this is not something that IT put together as, boy, wouldn't that be a cool thing? We take this very seriously. It's a huge project. We have an excellent team, and we didn't come to the agreement with administration for quite a while about whether we should or could do this. Once I got Mark on the team, Mark and I have worked on enterprise systems around the world with large corporations. Mark and I, together with our small team of programmers, we do believe we can do this with the proper funding, and we do believe that the administration is right, and we probably should. So we're here to lay out a few reasons, and then you can ask any questions you may have. The first reason is a compelling one. It's data control. By having it in-house, the data passes through fewer hands. That sounds simple, but it's extremely important, and I'll get into that a little bit in a minute. Archiving, you all know how important archiving data is for the state. There's rules, regulations, laws. With a vendor involved, that archiving process is clunky at best. They do a good job. I have no problem with vendors, but they can't do it as well as we can in-house. And that leads to reporting and monitoring. We are elections, and there is a lot of reporting. There are literally hundreds of reports that are generated before, during, and after an election. By having it in-house, that reporting is simpler. We can automate it. We can make sure it's correct. And monitoring also is a continuous thing, especially before and during an election. There is monitoring of data on many levels. Next slide, please. That leads us right into security. We are federally mandated to have the highest standards. We did before we became critical infrastructure. We've spent a lot of our limited budget on security. And I probably can't get into that in this meeting, but I certainly would if the board asked me to, or the legislators at some point. But we do have extremely high standards, DOJ, DOD type standards. So again, regarding security, the data passes through fewer hands, and that's important because the security is completely on us. That's a huge responsibility, but we accept that responsibility. We're not perfect. No system is perfect, but we take it extremely seriously on behalf of the Commonwealth. And you'll see in parentheses state networks. Again, nothing against vendors. Vendors are wonderful, but some of their systems are not behind the firewalls and protection layers that are included in the state network. By bringing this in-house, all aspects of it are on the state network and under our umbrella of security. So it's layered security that is of a much higher nature. Next slide, please. Flexibility is extremely important. We have to have the ability to adapt, grow, and respond to emergencies like COVID. 2020 was a horrible year in a lot of ways for many, many people. It was extremely difficult for elections. It was difficult for all of us at all levels in government. But we were able to make it through with, I think, very clear success because we already had done the entire VRS system and ancillary systems in-house. So we didn't have to ask a company out of state. We didn't have to go through, networking. We didn't have to pay extra money. We did it ourselves. We grew new systems. We adapted to that situation. And I'm very proud of the State Board of Elections and the Secretary of State and the governor and you folks. We made it through that. And that's because of flexibility. And having this system in-house gives us that flexibility. Next slide, please. This one is not in my wheelhouse, but I'm going to mention it. And then if you have questions, others can pick that up. Basically, the bid system has worked really well for Kentucky, obviously. It's not about a dislike of that or anything. It's that in this particular situation, it does give the board a little less control over vendor selection. And there are situations where we could end up with multiple vendors, different situations like that. And that goes back to the passing through fewer hands in the security. Next slide. And the last thing, it's not the last reason. We have many reasons. We just wanted to limit it and then find out what your thoughts were. The last one is agency expertise. By having an in-house staff of dedicated people who understand the laws, who understand Kentucky, the Commonwealth, who have the tools and the institutional knowledge to deal with this and other things. That's why VRS, the voter registration system, is in-house. It allows for real-time analysis because, again, we're not having to go through the layers of cost and the different vendors. So we can troubleshoot and customize. And you'll notice there it says customization required when working with 120 counties. That's important because I worked for large corporations and I ran teams that were vendors. And they do the best they can. And our vendors are excellent. We love working with them. However, they can never understand the needs of 120 different counties. They're all very different. Some of them have tiny budgets. Some of them have huge budgets. And they each have unique situations. By bringing this system in-house, we can accommodate not only large counties, but the small counties who are struggling with things. We can work with them to customize solutions that solve their particular problems. So thank you for your time. In a nutshell, that is our basic premise on this, and I'll turn it back over to Karen.
Thank you, Tom. By the way, you and Mark very highly recommended by the members of the board, Karen and her crew. They speak very highly of you, and I can see why now. But Karen?
Thank you.
I think that, listening to Tom, hearing our reasons for in-house, I think you also understand that we absolutely cannot have elections fail in Kentucky. We have an excellent team that brought us through many years of elections, and particularly 2020, which was a significant year and many changes that year. The expertise we have on hand, allows us the flexibility, the security, the data control, all these things that are extremely important to election integrity and security. But I just want to say that this has been, proposed and is ongoing in other states, not just Kentucky. We are not an island on considering this going forward. But we hope that we've been able to answer your questions or at least give you some more information about why we feel moving this poll book administration in-house is key for Kentucky and the Commonwealth. And again, it would be a domestic service in the Commonwealth.
Sure. Thank you, Karen. And, couple questions here. And before I begin with questions, just a quick statement. Keep in mind, these e-poll books was used in the last election cycle here in Kentucky.
Yes.
And there was no foreign entity that had any contact or control of our e-books here in Kentucky. Just for clarification purposes out there. And this is all about providing a safe, secure election, contrary to a lot of the rhetoric that's out there. So I do have a few questions, and Representative Donahue has a question. I'll let him begin with his question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the presentation. Tom, if I may call you Tom, Representative Donnie here, there's mentioned quite a bit. First of all, y'all do a terrific job, okay? And the folks that work in my district are near and dear to my heart. They're great folks. They take it with pride and are very, very labor intensive what they do, but they do a terrific job. So I want to say that first. The conversation was mentioned vendors, and in the previous jobs I used to do, I dealt with vendors a lot. And the use of vendors, and correct me if I'm wrong, we use those folks because they can provide the technology or the equipment or some of the resources that we don't have available. So what we're looking for is to bring this in-house and do it ourselves. And if we do that, can you give me the pros and cons of that? Well, you've gave me the pros of it. But how much amount of money are we talking here?
Long term, we don't know the answer to that. We have given you numbers that we think are accurate, but one of my concerns is that we undersell the cost. This is not a project. It has to be about cost. Trust me, we are very conscious of cost. We are on a shoestring budget and have been for years, and we are very conscious of that. But this particular project its overall goal is not to save cost. Maybe we will later. But it's going to cost probably, $1 million for the first year, and then $650,000-$700,000 after that. Because to actually support this kind of growth, we have to have that. As Karen said, elections are something that can't fail. And I always rush to say that I'm not guaranteeing 100% that things can't fail. Sometimes they do. Systems break. But I can guarantee that we take that extremely seriously. We have the know-how. We use triple redundancy. And so I don't mean to go too far afield. Let me be more direct in my answer. One of the big concerns has been vendors, and we've seen this in Kentucky. They sometimes go under, they sometimes move, they sometimes come under some kind of influence that one party or another doesn't approve of. So that kind of continuity is also something that's been of huge concern, not so much to me. I'm in the IT realm, but to the administration. And I understand that. I understand that concern, and especially the counties, they're concerned about that. So it is probably a more expensive solution, at least for the short term. But that doesn't mean that it's not a much better and more reasonable solution.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, may I have one more? I just want to make a comment. I'm here. I support you folks 110%. Okay, I think y'all do a tremendous job. I'm proud of the job you've done. If you look across the nation, what the state of Kentucky has done. And I'm here. I just wanted to have figure what kind of dollar figure we were looking at as I go out and sing your praises, okay, to make sure we move forward. So anything that I can do along with my fellow legislators, to help you, I will do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. You stole part of my question, Representative Donahue. But I will follow up a little bit on those same lines for whichever one may want to chime in with the answer, and that is, do you have any analysis that's been done on bringing this system in-house? We've heard the pros. I'm sure there's cons, but is there any kind of data analysis, anything that you all have compiled that says, yes, this is the best way for us to move forward to provide the most safest and best way to move forward having our elections in the Commonwealth?
I'll answer that real quickly, Karen, if you want to chime in. We do extremely thorough analysis from an IT perspective. We look at security, we look at controls, we look at adaptability, we look at redundancies, we look at cost, we look at all those things. We do compare to other states, and there is somewhat of a movement moving a lot of this stuff in-house in other states. That's one of the things that first caught my interest. And they're basically, from what I understand, the same reasons that we have. Mark, would you mind if Mark spoke a little bit?
Sure,
because
please.
I think Mark, you could add to this if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Do I need to swear in?
Mark, yes, please. If you raise your right hand for me, please. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I will.
Thank you. Proceed.
All right. Well, if I understand the question correctly, the amount of analysis, I think our analysis is not in the financial level, other than what's presented in terms of the cost that we hope you can hear me.
Yes.
The costs that have already been determined based on what we believe the amount of time and effort and the hardware that's needed to support the system. What, in terms of like what Tom was alluding to or describing, I think one of the biggest problems that we have right now, and is one of, I would put it from my perspective, staying out of the papers, right? And that all lends itself back to perceptions, security, the ability to be flexible, and when there are issues that come up during a particular election, there are always going to be system failures, as Tom mentioned, various areas where we have to be able to adapt and change both hardware, maybe make corrections to issues that people come across in terms of, I hate to say the idea of bugs, but things that come up that don't work because of something that was missed, and maybe even some in greater detail, or what wasn't even conceived of at the time. I think that ultimately the goal here is to improve that security and to give us better control over that data and how it flows back and forth to each of the voting centers and the polling locations. I think that's paramount. And that's one of the issues I think that we have when we deal with vendors externally. We have to accept the systems they have, or in their own good graces, they do some modifications within that limited budget that we have to make changes to their system, which they're selling to many, many states or many, many counties. And so from a financial analysis, it's only looking at it from the standpoint of what we think we can, what we believe we can do. Comparing that to what's out there, I guess the current bidding process when the current vendor was selected was one of the best at the moment. And but to modify it and to integrate it more into our system would just drive that cost up. I hope I've answered enough of the question in terms of what kind of analysis we have done.
You have. I would ask, though, would it be possible for you all to provide us something of your analysis that you've been doing on this to this subcommittee, being a budget review subcommittee?
Certainly, we'll come together and get something prepared.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Next, I would ask, it's my understanding that the Board of Elections was given money from the federal side of things to pay for the current operating system and equipment that Kentucky's using. And what will the future funding source be if we develop a new system and we bring this all in-house? Where does the funding come from?
Well, I can tell you that current funding now for our IT service, the maintenance of the voter registration system, the maintenance of the absentee portal, just to name a couple of things that most everyone is familiar with, comes from federal dollars. And at some point, we need to look to the future of moving these maintenance costs back to the Commonwealth. In the last, I don't know how many years because I haven't been here, but 2 years, but over many years, all of those costs have been sustained by federal HAVA dollars. So we probably have about a 4-year runway using federal dollars, maybe a little bit more. But as we transition to, say, a system like this, we're hoping we have the opportunity to explain further the other maintenance areas and the needs at SBE with IT going forward on particularly maintenance of VRS, absentee portal, because those have been sustained, as well as our IT staff through federal HAVA dollars.
Thank you. And reflecting back on some of Tom's comments and not trying to put words in his mouth, but breaking it down to a more plain spoke, the way I'm used to hearing things is you're going to get what you pay for. So if we want a good system in Kentucky, we got to be willing to pay for it, and we do want a good system in Kentucky. Another question would be, one of the part of your all's budget request was for hiring additional programmers, and do you have the capacity to hire enough programmers to build out this operating system? This building out operating systems is not a simple task. It's a major undertaking, and do you have the capacity to hire enough programmers to do that?
I may allow Tom to speak to that. He
Okay.
was instrumental in helping provide what he felt would be the number of programmers we may need as part of the budget in these years, and to be able to be trained and move forward with maintenance once the system is complete. So Tom or Mark, if one of you all would.
Yeah, I can speak to that. It's an excellent question, and we believe that we can, if this plan were approved, we can put that into place over a multi-year timeline. Test it, make sure the plan includes equipment. Our equipment is housed at COT. We have an agreement with them. They protect it and provide redundancy. They don't touch it. We do that. And it has to be that way because of our security needs. And so, yes, we do believe that with this budget, we would be able to have the people we need to build this. Ongoing, it could be, the ongoing expense could be a little less just for e-poll books, or it could be a little more. I don't know yet. Some of that I just can't predict. I think that we're very accurate in this accounting that we've put together for that. But I think the larger question that you may be getting at is, even if that happens, and forgive me for going there, but even if that happens, in 4 or 5 years, most of our programmers, we don't have that many, by the way, there's only a few of us. we're going to have to go because there won't be federal money to sustain us. So even if this plan is approved, and I do think we can do this, long term, there are some real budgetary problems.
That brings up another concern, obviously, is, and this is just me speaking out loud, if we bring this in-house and they develop the program, we got to make sure we keep people like Tom on staff, that we can keep this program up and up to date. Technology is constantly changing. So, that's definitely a concern that we have to make sure to do. But while we're on the programmers, let me ask this question as well. What would the programmers' role be? I guess we kind of figure out what their role is going to be on election day, but what would their role be on election day and then on a non-election day? What's the role of the programmers?
The programmers that are in this budget request are not the same as the carefully selected and trained group that we have now. Mark and I are what we call seniors. We're system architects. We are senior software engineers. And we come from similar backgrounds, and we've worked together at like Lexmark in the past. We're very lucky to have Mark. That kind of expertise is not easy to find or to secure. And so we don't necessarily need more system architects. We have we have another senior, Joe Songer, and he's excellent. And we have a mid-level, and Alan Hess. And then we have a junior. And trust me, there's plenty of work for them to do. So those that are in this budget are people who they're programmers, probably mid to senior level, who will take the architecture and the plans that Mark and I put together and help us to implement that. So they will help us build the server network, all the various parts of the software. It's very complicated to work with the devices themselves. I could go into details that you don't need, but there are many. This is a very complex thing, many moving pieces. Working with can it be on an iPad and another device? All of those things. Upgrading, locking those devices. So their jobs will be a mixture of coding to standard for what we need. And also we may try to get some content experts in areas like Apple, working with Apple technologies. Not that we all can't do that, but again, that's a moving target. It's very complex. So they would need to be pretty senior people at the start for at least the first couple of years. Once that's over, then it's mostly support, making sure that each county is ready for an election. What are their particular problems? You wouldn't believe the numbers of problems that are unique to each county. So we have to have people. What I'm trying to say is you can't just get somebody and throw them on a desk and say, hey, answer the needs for Fayette County. They can't do that. They don't know those people. They don't know the clerks. They don't know the deputies. They don't know the laws. They don't know the systems. So working with this kind of system or these kinds of systems is complicated. So you have to have good people who care and who can respond to those situations under our auspices. We take care of the larger picture. And so to get specific, on election day, it's handling everything that comes up immediately. And there are hundreds of things that come up, technology issues, people issues. So surrounding an election, it's constant. It's a constant, endless flow of problems. And we accept that. That's what we do. We've got to get the election done. It's got to be correct. Got to be secure. Off of that time, though, there's much work to do too. There's training. There are always new clerks. There are always new deputies. They have to learn the voter registration system. They have to learn e-poll book systems. They have to learn what that equipment means, where it's stored, how you maintain it. We do in-person trainings. We do trainings. We have them come to us, and sometimes we go to them, put on regional trainings. So training, customization, troubleshooting, that is an ongoing thing. We work for months prior to an election to make sure the counties are ready, to get their data lined up, to make sure that each precinct is ready. And it's not just IT, it's the whole SBE. So I hope that answered your question somewhat. It isn't a situation where there's ever a day that's for idle hands. It's a 24/7 operation, really.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So one of the concerns is the state in the state developing its own systems. Are we preventing our counties from contracting from the private sector? Does the Board of Elections share this concern on that issue? That's from Chairman Petrie.
That has come up. We actually have a work group with the State Board of Elections, the board members, and we are looking into those areas. We've had one meeting. We'll have another. Chairman Chandler appointed 2 members. We have county clerk representative, Secretary of State represents, and looking into that opportunity that I guess what you're saying is an e-poll book vendor other than if it's us or the current 10X. Right. And we are working with that as a work group through the board to develop a...
We moved to total in-house working. Will we have the capability, will you all have the capabilities to respond to the needs on Election Day from Pikeville to Paducah when they arise?
I'll defer that to Tom, but I would answer yes. If it's our system, they respond right now to the current vendor. If there are questions and they don't reach the current vendor, Tom's team is right there ready to respond to them as well.
Thank you. That's good enough. I thank you all for coming today. I do like the fact that you're exploring the possibilities of moving things in-house. I think it brings a lot of options of security. That is a big concern right now with people across the country. And what we want our folks to know here in the Commonwealth is we do provide safe, secure elections. This past election was a safe, secure election in the Commonwealth. I have no doubts of that. And so we appreciate y'all coming, but I do want to give an opportunity. We have some folks, I think, from the Secretary of State's office here today, and maybe from the clerks. Do we have a clerk here today? I thought. And do you all have anything you all want to add or need to add? Okay. If not, Karen, your folks, anybody have anything else they want to add?
I just
want to say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Well, we certainly thank you all for coming and presenting today. Try to do everything we can to help you all to do your jobs. It's about providing you the resources, and in this case, that resource is funding. And so I appreciate you coming, and anything we can do to be of help, please let us know. With that, if there's nothing else then to come before the committee, we shall be adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.